Welcome back to Wounds to Wisdom. I'm your host, Lolita, and today's episode is one I wish I didn't have to record because it means I know this pain too well. Today, we're talking about losing a sibling, but not just any sibling, the one who was your person, the one who made life make sense. Losing a sibling is different from any kind of grief. It's not just losing family. It's losing a part of yourself. It's waking up every day feeling like something is missing in the deepest part of your soul. Like the world is off balance and you can't fix it. I know this pain because I've lived it. In 2017, I lost my sister Nisha. And when I say lost, I don't mean just in the physical sense. I mean, I lost me. She was the fire, the loud one, the one who could light up a room without even trying. Then you have me. I was the quiet one, the introvert who found safety in her presence. She was my voice when I couldn't speak, my strength when I didn't know how to stand. And when she was gone, I didn't just grieve her. I grieved who I was when she was here. If you've ever lost a sibling who was your protector, your best friend, your anchor in this chaotic world, then you know this kind of grief never fully leaves. And this episode is for you. So the first thing I do want to talk about is when your sibling is your identity. Losing a sibling isn't just about missing them. It's about trying to figure out who you are without them. For me, Misha wasn't just my sister. She was the person who filled in all my gaps. I didn't need to be the outgoing one because she was. I didn't need to be the bold one because she took up that space for both of us. And then suddenly, she wasn't here anymore. And that silence was deafening. I remember after she passed, I would catch myself reaching for my phone to text her. I'd have moments where I think, let me call Misha and tell her about this. Only to remember I couldn't. And that realization would knock the wind out of me every single time. Some of you know exactly what I mean. Maybe your sibling was your first best friend, the one who knew your secrets like Misha knew mine, who understood your fears, who made the world feel safe. Maybe they were the one who kept the family together, who made you laugh when life felt unbearable. And now they're gone. And you're trying to figure out how to exist in a world that no longer feels like home. But I want to ask you this, and I want you to ask yourself this. Who were you when they were here? And who are you now that they're gone? Because that's the part people don't talk about. The identity crisis that comes with this kind of grief. The way you feel like a stranger to yourself. The way you catch yourself waiting for a phone call that will never come. The way you hear their voice in your head giving you advice, laughing, calling your name, only to remember they're not here anymore. Grief isn't just sadness. It's the empty seat at the dinner table. It's the inside jokes that don't feel the same without them. It's reaching for your phone to text them and stopping mid-swipe because reality hits you like a gut punch. It's realizing that no one will ever know you the way they did. And that is a pain that words will never fully capture. So Grief doesn't just show up in sadness, it sneaks into your life in ways you don't see it coming. And for me, it came as anger. After Misha passed away, I didn't just grieve, I raged. I was angry at the world, at God, at myself for all the things I could never change. And for a long time, I didn't realize that what I was feeling was grief. I thought I was just mad. And then in 2019, I felt myself spiraling. I would go days on end with barely any sleep. Some nights I'd manage maybe 2 hours. Other nights I wouldn't sleep at all. My mind never stopped. It was like my thoughts were running a marathon I couldn't even control. And the thing about grief is, when you don't deal with it, it doesn't just go away. It just keeps building up. It weighs you down little by little until one day you realize you're drowning in it. And that was me. But by the time my birthday rolled around in 2019, I knew I couldn't keep going like I was. I was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So that year, I made a promise to myself that I was going to go to therapy. And that decision saved my life because just after that first therapy session, my therapist told me that I could not keep going the way I was with a severe anxiety and depression, and then insomnia on top of that. My body was shutting down, my mind was overloaded. And if I didn't do something, and if I didn't start facing my grief instead of running from it, I wouldn't make it. And that was the moment I realized I couldn't just survive my grief. I had to heal from it. So, lastly, I want to talk about finding yourself again. So, how do you figure out who you are when the person who helped you be who you are is gone? So, here are some of the things that I learned along my journey, and maybe it can help someone else. So, step one is speak their name. Sometimes society tells us to move on, to stop trying to bring them up or to quote unquote let go. But I refuse to erase Misha's name from my life. So I say her name. I tell her stories. I celebrate her birthday year after year after year. I let her exist in my world, even if it's not the way I want. Step two, find your own voice. For so long, I let her be my voice. I let her be the brave one, the bold one, the fearless one. But when she left, I had no choice but to step into myself to figure out who I was without her. And that part, that was the hardest of all. Maybe you're struggling with that too. Maybe you spent your whole life tied to someone else's energy, and now you're standing in an empty space, unsure of how to fill it. Well, I want you to know this. You are still whole, even in your grief, even in your loneliness, and even in your pain. And the last step I want to talk about is let yourself feel it. Don't rush grief. Don't suppress it because the world tells you to. Feel every ounce of it. Let it break you open and let it teach you. Because I'm here to tell you that on the other side of that pain is love. And love is what keeps them with us. I know grief can feel like an endless cycle, like a weight you never fully put down, because I also know that healing is possible. It doesn't just mean forgetting them. It doesn't mean moving on. It means finding a way to carry your love and memories forward without losing yourself in the pain. So before we close today, I want to leave you with something to reflect on. If you're listening to this episode and this episode resonated with you, I want you to grab a journal or even the notes on your phone, the notes app on your phone. And I want you to take a few minutes and sit with this. If you could sit down with your sibling for one last conversation, what would you say? What do you wish they could tell you in return? I want you to write it all down. Your love, your grief, your anger, your unanswered questions. Let it all out. And then take a deep breath and ask yourself, how can I honor their memory while still choosing to live for myself? And when you're writing that or typing it out, let yourself feel whatever comes up. Cry if you need to, but most importantly, be honest with yourself. Healing begins when we stop running from what's inside of us. So in closing, I want to say that I know grief feels like a war you never signed up for, a fight you didn't ask to be in. But listen to me. You are still standing. Even on the nights when sleep won't come. Even on the days when your chest feels too tight to breathe. Even in the moments when you don't recognize the person in the mirror anymore. You are still here. And if you are still here, that means your story isn't over. Grief will try to convince you that you're broken beyond repair. It will lie to you. It will whisper that you will never be whole again. But I need you to hear me when I say this. You are not broken. You are becoming. This pain, this loss, is shaping you, but will never define you. So what will you do with this grief? Will you let it bury you? Or will you take it piece by piece and build something out of it? Will you choose to live, not just for them, but for you? Because the best way to honor the ones we've lost is to live a life that would make them proud. So cry when you need to, break down if you must, but when you're ready, I want you to stand back up. I want you to keep going and keep fighting, because you, my love, were never meant to stay in the dark. You were meant to rise. And until next time, remember, your pain does not define you, your love does. And if this episode touched you, you can DM me on Instagram or Facebook at Wounds to Wisdom 2, or you can also email me at woundstowisdom2@gmail.com to share your thoughts. Also subscribe to the podcast and share with someone who needs to hear it. And until next time, take care of your heart.